this presentation, Nanoplastic Invisible Threat and Global Risk. My name is Gabriela. I work as a primary care physician, and joining tonight is my colleague Alexander, who is a biochemist and bioinformatician. We would like to show you the outline of tonight's presentation, and now I would like to give the word to my colleague.
Thank you so much. I would like also to say that we are representative of ALLATRA Global Research Center. It's an international scientific organization who is dealing with the current problems of our society. And one of these problems is the studying micro and nanoplastics. I think the problem is very acute, and just imagine taking a deep breath right now. Right now in this room, we have really a lot of particles that are releasing from this furniture, that are released from this nice couple here, and we are surrounded by plastics everywhere, even from our clothes. So like for decades, we viewed plastics as a sort of eyesore, like bottles on the beach. But even those of us who are truly immersed in this problem, who are really taking care of the future of humanity, unfortunately may not realize the true scale of what is really hidden, because the real problem is in what we don't see.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and as you probably most of you here know, we have reached a point that micro and nanoplastics literally became integral part of us. Like Sasha mentioned, they are everywhere, in the air we breathe, in the food we eat, in the water we drink. And once it enters our bloodstream, it can circulate throughout the body, and it can actually get to all harmful organs. You can get into heart, into lungs, you can get into liver, kidneys, you can even cross placenta, and here it will obviously interact and cause some biological dysfunctions.
Yeah, to start the interaction, let's have a quick question for the audience. How many of you have really explored, studied the topic of MSD, micro and nanoplastic? Please raise your hand. I think that in our presentation, you will hear much more interesting information that you may not heard before.
Mm-hmm. And just to show the scale of the problem, because the microplastics are discussed quite extensively, but nanoplastics not as much. And what is micro, what is nano? Microplastics are larger than 1 micrometer and smaller than 5 millimeters. You can imagine them as large as an average cell, like red blood cell or bacterial size, and actually can be detected by regular microscopy. And nanoplastics are actually very, very tiny particles, smaller than 1 micrometer, and they can be as small as virus or even much smaller. And obviously cannot be detected by regular microscopy. We need like electron microscopy, Raman microscopy, and so on. So what is also important to know about it, it's not just the size, but it's also the properties, which are very important. And we'll talk about that later.
As you already know, the main reservoir of plastic is the ocean. And now let's watch a short video, which will talk about this plastic integration in the ocean to see the really true scale of the problem that we are facing.
The ocean is the main reservoir of plastic accumulation. It already contains more than 200 million tons of plastic waste, and this amount continues to grow every day. It is important to understand that plastic does not disappear. Under the influence of sunlight, waves, salinity, and mechanical friction, it breaks down into microplastics and nanoplastics. Microplastics are plastic particles smaller than 5 millimeters in size, while nanoplastics are smaller than 1 micrometer, about 1,000 times thinner than a human hair. There are about 350 trillion microplastic particles in the surface layer of the ocean alone. Yet the real number is far greater.
So as we saw in this video, I would just like to have a short comment that we have over 200 million tons of plastic in our oceans. And like, if we can imagine, it's like a loaded truck is releasing the plastic every minute. Mm-hmm. But plastic doesn't biodegrade. That's the issue. It's just fragments.
You can see the little plastic cap on the screen, and you can see it starting to biodegrade to some, some pretty big particles, because we can see them. How many particles can this small cap produce if it breaks down to 5 nanometer particles.
Really, this figurative idea is that we have so much nanoplastic particles. If we can really take a model and split this one small cup, like in a 50 nanometer scale, we get really quintillion of particles. And like if we can imagine that if the whole plastic will be splitted, every single liter of water would contain 286 million of these nanoscale particles. So that is why standard cleanup, in our opinion, is so difficult, because we are no longer trying to fish, like a needle from a haystack. We're trying to somehow get rid of dissolved sugar in a cup of tea. So because we cannot actually see these nanoplastic particles, and we have no means to really filter them out.
Right, we don't see the sugar, but we taste it in the cup. So the next question for you is, in your opinion, in what ways humans are exposed to nanoplastics?
Fibers from clothes, when we
Yes.
washing, tires, exactly.
Right.
It's also
Very good.
it's really a problem that we need to think about and need to collectively solve it.
And as we saw in the video, ocean is a large reservoir of nanoplastic particles, and every year 136,000 tons of microplastics are blown onto a land from the sea. And in a just 2-hour walk, you can actually inhale over 100,000 particles. And inside, where, like you guys mentioned, carpets, gloves, and other things around us, the numbers can be actually even higher. That means the indoor might be even more saturated.
So what is even more surprising that, and you also said it's written that our food is also spoiled, and the things that are previously considered as healthy, like fruits, vegetables, right now they are no longer can be considered in such a way because of the processes that when the nanoplastic particles get in from the roots of the vegetables and fruits, they are getting into there and then they're stored. Like when we see for all the studies that we have right now, that's why we have asked you, have you ever studied this problem? Because it's a thing to reconsider, and because plastic then will act, and I think later on we'll talk about health implication. It can actually carry a lot of other toxins and heavy metals and areas that we already have in soil further to our body. It acts like a transport.
So what was, for instance, personally for me, very surprising when I start learning more about this topic, that even all the food which I like and I thought is good for me and healthy for me, it's already containing all these micro nanoplastics. So is it really healthy? And now let's just watch video from Professor Ragusa, an Italian OBGYN. You probably guys already might know him.
There are 3 ways plastic gets into the body: through inhalation, through the skin, and through food. And what happens next? It enters the bloodstream. Until fairly recently, about 15 years ago, people thought plastic was inert. And in fact, if you look at these plastic pellets, not microplastics but larger macroplastics, even if you put them in water, they just sit there quietly. It seems like they don't interfere much with the environment. But once they break down into micro and nanoplastics, they get into the human body through those 3 pathways, enter the bloodstream, and from there reach all the parenchymal tissues, that is, the organs, kidneys, liver, heart, arteries, veins, placenta, breast milk.
Micro and nanoplastics have already become an inseparable part of the human body. They accumulate in the tissues of the intestines, heart muscles, and in the endocrine and reproductive organs, disrupting their functions. There isn't a single place in the human body they cannot penetrate.
We thank Dr. Ragusa for his very important discovery for all of us. And recently, I've noticed in my practice that I'm observing for instance, my patients. I was observing one important thing, like in respiratory diseases, patients used to have like a year or 2 years ago, the common flu would last up to 5 days, sometimes 7 days, and then they would be okay. And now, the last year, what I'm observing is that patients are coming back and they're sick for 3-4 weeks. And they're not getting better and then continuously coming back with some problems. chronic cough, and so on. So I start asking myself, like, is it possible that even the micro nanoplastics can be causing this?
You might actually wonder, we have dealing as a humans with some really small nanoparticles for centuries, for millions of years. Like we are dealing with dust, soot, organic particles, and we have, so to say, evolutionary manual how to recognize these dust and soot and etc. and eliminate them. But plastic is a new material, and there is a crucial distinction that changes everything.
What is interesting about the key properties of plastic, especially nanoplastics, right? We are right now talking about nanoplastics. It's the size. As you guys already know, less than 1 micrometer. It's very, very small. It can get almost anywhere. Then, very well-known chemical additives, phthalates, bisphenols, and all these other chemical additives, which they are pretty well studied. Then hydrophobic properties are actually also a very important part of plastics. And the surface charge, it's another very important thing. So we would like to elaborate more about that surface charge in this presentation today.
And would like also to mention, in my lab experience, we have dealt with nanoparticles of gold and titanium oxide. Like it's a typical way to study their influence on the health of animal models, on some cell cultures. And we have really great insight from that time, from that lab, that the nanoscale and microscale properties, they are actually different from macroscale objects. So gold, in its normal, in the ring form, have different properties than micro and nanoscale gold. So, and it's in our experiment showed that it blocked completely a lot of enzymes. And when we see the right now nanoscale nanoplastic particles, they have a so-called electric-like behavior. Electrolyte is a material that accumulates static electricity and hold this charge for extended time. So that means that surface charge, or in scientific literature, it's also called zeta potential, enhances interaction between these particles and like cells, organelles, so they can easily enter and reach our biomolecules like DNAs and proteins. And it's the smaller the particle, the stronger, and thus this interaction, it's really goes really deep inside to our most safest place in the cell and causing a lot of harmful effects. And it's noted in recent peer review articles, the plastic particles may impose significant environmental and health hazard, with surface charge playing a critical role in governing this behavior.
So now we'll talk about the health implications. As I was mentioning before, I work as a physician, and I see that a lot of things are changing recently. We see a lot of patients, there's more cancers. Younger patients are actually getting more sick. There are a lot of chronic diseases, exacerbation of all different kinds of respiratory diseases, and it's really very concerning. And when I was studying this topic, what surprised me about the properties of nanoplastic was that it can, well, first of all, it's very small. So it's the very, very tiny size. And when it's smaller than 100 nanometers, it can actually pass directly through any membrane, right? Even via like passive diffusion. Then, of course, there are a lot of barriers in the human body which will not allow this, because there's active transport and all this stuff. But because of this charge, which is interacting with the human cell, plus the size, it helps the nanoplastic get right in. And not just into the cytoplasm, it can actually get into the other organelles, like mitochondria. That's particularly concerning. Mitochondria, you might know, it's super important for us. It's like a power plant for a cell. If mitochondria is not working properly, the cell is not going to work properly. That means the organ is not going to work properly. Also, there are some studies suggesting that it can actually even cause DNA breakages. That's also particularly very concerning. Another interesting thing to me was that once the particle enters the blood, because of the charge, it gets coated by plasmatic proteins, lipids, and so on, because the way I imagine it, and now just this is figuratively speaking, right? I'm imagining it like on top of the plastic particle, there's plus. The plasmatic proteins are usually minus, so it will attract. It will code it, and this way, our immune system will not recognize this particle as a foreign particle. It will just travel unseen as a friend throughout our system, and it can get anywhere. So that's bad for us, right? And this way it can get anywhere. Another important thing is that this charge on top of the particle, because it's plus, and it's called electron transduction, it can actually pass this electron to the microbes, like bacteria. And what does that mean to us? If bacteria is supposed to live certain time, and now it encounters this plastic particle. This plastic particle gives it the extra electron. That means this bacteria is going to live longer and gives it extra energy to do certain mutations. It can divide rapidly. It can even result in producing more biofilm and thus result in antibiotic resistance, right? This is like very simple explanation. But if you dive deep into the topic, you might actually realize that all these mechanisms are already being described.
Yeah, I would like also to comment on one of the points that in my research career, I have studied neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer, Parkinsonism in a research institute. And it's really astonishing that there are papers right now that showing clearly that nanoplastic particles can easily go through the blood-brain barrier, and they might be also a cause of these diseases. Like in typical research, like when I did it like 10 years ago, it was really hard to understand what is causing all these chronic diseases. So we see only the consequences. So we understand that it started 20 years ago, but we don't know what actually triggered it, how they are starting really. So we're just seeing the causes and trying to somehow cure the patient. So we really need to reconsider all fever health protocols. And I think we'll talk about it later. So we'll now go to another topic, because it's not only implicates our health, but also has atmospheric and ocean disruption. It's an area of active research right now, and what fact is already established that micro nanoplastics do affect the water cycle. So what does it influence involve? Like, for example, water vapor in the air does not condense into raindrops on its own. It needs some particles like to start initiators, and then they can condensate around so-called condensation nuclei. And naturally, that was like sand, sea salt, as again, soot, some aerosols. But nanoplastic are present in the air in large amounts. So I remember we have visited an observatory in Austria. It was really nice place, beautiful in the really clearest. And they have a laboratory that have tracked these nanoplastic particles. It's a uniquely European project. That is the inventor. He did a filter that could catch even there in Alps through 3,106 meters. It was nanoplastic particle there. Means it rise all over the ocean. In our film, we have also show these excerpts from interview that through the atmosphere it goes very quickly. So in one place released, for example, in 2 days they have smelled in Austria the Hiroshima or some Canadian wildfire. So it's distributed very easily. And right now we understand that nanoplastic particles interfere again with some normal atmospheric and oceanic cycles. Yeah, so it's an area of further research. Yes, please continue.
Yes, and another very concerning thing to me is the ocean thermal conductivity. As we mentioned before, the millions of tons of plastics, they're present in the biosphere and constantly are breaking down, smaller and smaller particles, and they have this electrostatic charge, the surface charge. You can call it surface charge for a better understanding. And they concentrate in the ocean in the three main layers. They're at the bottom of the ocean, as you can see on the picture. They're at the surface, and they're in the middle, in the area of a thermocline, where water temperature is rapidly changes. And these particles can actually interact with the surface charge. They interact with the water molecules at the level of the hydrogen bonds. And what that means is a result that physical and chemical characteristics of the ocean water can actually change. and the heat dissipation into the atmosphere might slow down. The way I imagine it is sort of like you put a blanket, like on top of the layer of a blanket. And thus, the ocean is not able to get rid of the heat and might be contributing to the heating of the ocean itself.
Yeah, so if we go to the next slide. So what are the current solutions that we have in order to really get rid? Because once you think that, oh, something is in my body, I really need to get rid of it. We know that there are some methods like plasmapheresis, hemabsorption. We have filtration devices, biohacking, different methods, detox.
But, okay, question for you guys. Do you think we can detox our body from nanoplastics? You know, I myself, when I started dealing with this topic, first what I did, I got rid of the plastic chopping boards and tried to eliminate the plastic as much as I could. But then, if you think about how much plastic has been already produced right now, and it's going to be, I'm calling it decaying, decaying for like hundreds and hundreds of years. Like we're still, even if we stop the production today, we'll be still dealing with quintillions particles of micro and nanoplastics, which are being released already and are going to be released. So just think about that. So we have to really think about some maybe other solution.
Yeah, and we also would like to comment that right now plastic is deeply integrated in our modern life. So it's when we really think about the full plastic life cycle, and of course we have heard these ideas that we can try to get rid of it, we can use it less, but let's think about medicine, let's think about our infrastructure. Right now we cannot do that. It will just fail, and plus we have a lot of examples in our history when some decisions, like a hard decision, will be made, but we need to really think about it thoughtfully. And right now we can just admit that right now here on the conference, we have a lot of plastics, and we could not just imagine this room without plastic. What we left? So we can just only admit it, and full prohibition is not simply possible in foreseeable future. And it's economically disadvantageous either at the level of individual countries or in the level of international economy.
Well, not just that. Working in a medicine, a lot of things we use is plastic, right? We use it at stents, at catheters, pretty much, patients already have right now in them plenty of different stents and things, like in GI tract for biliary stenosis, heart, it's a little bit maybe different than drug-eluting stents, but there's a lot of plastic already, which has some advantages, right? So it's not like we can say, okay, let's stop all the plastic production right now. I mean, we can, but is it going to help? How is this going to solve the problem of the plastic, which is already right now disintegrating? It's not. So that's why we're having this presentation, just to show also another scope of this plastic pollution.
Yeah, and that's why also plasmapheresis and hemabsorption might not help, because everything that we'll do, it also contains plastic. We just all the plastic tubes and everything, and we have no guarantee that they will again be released in the plastic.
Out of the cells.
Yes. So if we go to the next solution, recycling of plastic, the paradox actually that mechanical stress produces more micro and nanoplastic particles. So when we try to recycle it, we'll just shred particles faster, and they will shred faster than it will just remain intact, or virgin plastic. So we're not solving the problem, we're just accelerating it.
So I guess we all understand that we cannot really clean this up because it's tiny and it's a lot of it. We cannot filter it out from our body, we already understood that. And we cannot recycle our way out because we are just going to create even more nanoplastics in the recycling process. So what can we actually do?
We have recently held a presentation in the European Union on 24th of February. We talked to the European Parliament members that we really need to work on unified standards, first of all, because we need standards for monitoring particles under 10 microns. Each research group, right now, uses their own methods, own classification criteria. So we need to really unify it in order to compare data from different countries, different labs, and really have a comprehensive picture of nanoplastic distribution across the whole world. And next.
And then we also lack like standardized protocols for human health. We have no like unified methodology for assessing the effects of nanoplastics on the human body. And without these unified protocols, we cannot really obtain reliable, reproducible results for making informed decisions. And another important thing is that we also still lack comprehensive longitudinal studies evaluating the multifaceted impact of these nanoplastics, like the causality. Like, yes, we know the plastic is there, but what's the causality? So that's another thing which we miss. And this gap, but is actively being addressed. There are a lot of emerging initiatives globally, which is great. And then another important thing is there are no requirements for including nanoplastics in climate research. Scientific climate models, they still do not account for this factor. We study the influence of CO2, methane, aerosols, but we ignore nanoplastics, which can actually significantly probably affect climate process as well. And this is a serious gap which we need to also address.
We have also talked about the surface charge. And we know that it's a problem that both in our biosphere and as well as in our body, and there are risks that should be mitigated. We currently have no practical means of altering their chemical composition, size, shape, or like really to do it at scale. And one potentially feasible approach, at least in principle, however, like it's no influence, is to influence the surface charge of these particles. The surface charge of micro nanoparticles, they really play an important role, and we would like to really state it again. And like in determining their behavior in biological systems. And like all these naturally occurring particles, they also carry surface charge, but the charge associated with plastic particles is really appears to differ in its persistence and interaction dynamics. So we really need to trigger and research in this area, and like because it's really remains stable in multiple environments, fluid and air and biological fluids. One important point that we would like to make is a shift of paradigm. Like for this reason, like international research should be really focused on development methods to really try to understand how we can able to reduce or neutralize the surface charge of MNPs. And achieving this objective would require coordinated, large-scale international collaboration. We have actually also like examples that we have in our history that we already made. For example, Human Genome Project. A lot of countries just get into this goal with clear that we really need to do that, and we were able to collectively solve this issue. Same goes to this Montreal Protocol and bans of CCFs.
And we were suggesting or thinking that European representatives would actually consider proposing a UN protocols for MMPs neutralization at the next climate summit. And they could also initiate the creation of an international research coalition with EU participation. It's pretty much, we all know it's here, we all know it's bad for us, and now we all have to come together and actually do something about it.